This podcast is not sponsored or supported by any business or organization. The views reflected on these podcast episodes are my own. Please be aware I am not a medical expert, travel agent, or any other kind of expert. Hey everyone! Welcome to the Eat, Explore, Love podcast. I'm Ashley. This podcast is based off of my blog of the same name, Eat, Explore, Love. It talks about the unique challenges in traveling around the world when you have celiac disease. Due to sort of popular demand, I decided to also record a podcast to delve a little deeper into my travels and the lessons learned along the way. On this episode of Eat, Explore, Love, the podcast, Brittany is back to talk about her perspective of our celiac disease diagnosis story. We talk about what that transition was like for her as a competitive gymnast, her advice for people getting diagnosed nowadays, how it impacted her looking at colleges, and even dating. Please enjoy this part 2 of 3 episodes of me chatting with my sister Brittany. Okay, so the last episode we talked a lot about the celiac cruise and that experience. By the way, would you do that again?
The celiac cruise?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would depend.
Yeah, on where the excursion
were and how much time was going to be spent in each place.
Mm-hmm.
Just because some places, because they go so quick through all, the cities and everything, like a typical cruise. There were some places I was like, I need another day. Can we please?
So I want to go into your life with celiac, which we kind of touched on a little bit before. The listeners know the genesis of our celiac story, so you don't have to probably go through all of that. But I'm curious to know from and if anybody wants to know about our celiac origin story, they can go back and listen to that episode. But from the perspective of a 10, 11-year-old, what was going through your mind? Were you just told one day out of the blue, I have celiac disease? Is that how it felt like for you? What was your perspective on it?
I'm trying to remember. I remember our brother Dominic being brought in for testing and stuff for a lot of different things. But that was out of the ordinary for him because of his autism and stuff, that he was always at the doctor's trying to figure out different things with him regarding that. And then I remember that being the celiac is what got lit up because he was being tested for everything because he completely fell off the growth chart,
right,
which concerned the doctors. So that's why they tested him for it, and that ended up coming back as being flagged or whatever. And so then I remember our mom coming and talking to me and saying that, I need to get tested for this, that Dominic has it, and it's something that, we all may have. And so got, the blood test done and stuff, and ended up coming back positive for the two of us as well. And we both got the test and ended up coming, back positive for the two of us. And then just being told by our mom that we were going on the diet, that it was something that I didn't want to do. I was like, Mom, I feel fine. I don't need to be doing this. But my mom telling us, no, I know you feel fine, but you're not actually fine. So you need to go and you need to do this in order to be, strong and healthy and everything. And it ended up, after going on to the celiac diet, was when I noticed that there was things that was actually wrong that we thought were normal and fine, but they actually weren't normal and fine.
What does that mean for you? Because I know from the outside, and again, 15 and 11 are it's almost like two completely different worlds. So I have a different perspective of, I remember you were kind of like a walking skeleton. Like, you didn't have a lot of color to your skin. You had dark circles around your eyes. And then you and Dominic were eating gluten-free. And Dominic was the same way, and I was the same way too. But I don't have that perspective. I remember seeing you and our brother looking healthier and healthier as time went on. And in the episode about where I told my story, nothing was happening for me in that regard. In fact, I felt worse for a while, and it took a long time before I felt better. Did you immediately feel better? What felt different?
Well, no. So I was a competitive gymnast where I trained. I went to camps under the Carolis, who were the coaches that led the U.S. Olympic team for years. And so I was at practice from 3:30 right after school until 11 o'clock at night when I got home. So I lived at the gym, and I went to the gym 5 out of the 7 days of the week. So I was constantly training, working out, and I was super skinny because, 1, with working out that much, and 2, with having celiac but not being diagnosed. So any of the food and nutrients that I was getting and eating was either going through like the system and not being picked up because it wasn't gluten-free and my system was damaged, or it was being taken right away at that second and it was immediately being burned off.
Yeah.
So anything that I was getting was either passing through or getting burned off. So I wasn't getting any nutrients or anything to be able to gain weight and to be able to look like be able to be healthy at all. And so I looked like I was basically overall, I looked like I was anorexic, and it was because it was like I was anorexic because my body wasn't getting any of the nutrients or anything. And so I got talked to, my parents spoke with my coaches a lot about trying to get me to gain weight. My coaches set me up on a diet of eating certain meals, and so I was able to get enough protein. I had to have at least 1 to 2 protein shakes a day that my mom would make for me before going to practice, that were filled with all fatty things of ice cream and stuff to just try and get stuff on my bones. And nothing was really working or helping. And then when we got diagnosed, and I was also eating my plate of dinner and everything, but I was always being yelled at that I wasn't eating enough because of how I looked.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I got diagnosed with the celiac and our parents did more research into it that they realized that that's what was going on with me, was that I was eating all the things and stuff that I was supposed to, but my body wasn't picking up any of those nutrients or was burning it all off. And that's why I had looked anorexic.
Yeah.
And then when I went gluten-free, I had a hard time with transitioning because at that point, celiac was not popular and there weren't a lot of gluten-free options or brands out there. All that there was Udi's bread for a choice of bread, and it was not good.
Especially at that time.
At that time. There was bigger holes in the bread than there was bread.
Yeah.
And so I had a hard time with transitioning, and I refused to eat it. So then I kind of did turn almost anorexic because I couldn't eat regular food. I didn't want to eat the gluten-free food because it tasted bad. But then eventually found things that I liked that were gluten-free after doing more research and finding different few shops that had the gluten-free. And then my next issue turned to with bringing lunch to school.
Yeah.
In elementary school in 5th grade. I would come in with my lunch box and everybody would be like, ooh, what's that? Because no one ever saw anything gluten-free before, especially at that age, and it's all innocent. And I'd give everybody my snacks to try, and then...
Would you say that you're a people pleaser?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm big people pleaser, and I also I'm a big just people person in general, and I always put others before myself. which as a 5th grader, that turned into a fall, especially during lunchtime when I would give everybody pieces of my snacks to try that they had never had before, like normally would before I went gluten-free. But then after I did that, I'd look down at my lunchbox. I'd see that I had nothing left in my lunchbox for me to eat for lunch, and everybody still had their full lunches that they got from the cafeteria line, and I couldn't go into the cafeteria line to get more lunch because they didn't serve gluten-free food at the school. So then I was left a couple lunches to be starved to death. And so that was kind of like my learning process, like with celiac and how that affected me then. And then
so once you started eating though, and like getting healthier habits and setting boundaries with other people and taking your food, did you then start noticing a better difference and like things turning around, or it took a while?
It took a while. And I think it's something that, like how you were saying with celiac and with a lot of celiacs, it takes time for your system to heal. And I did actually like a whole architecture project on celiac because I was doing a digestive health clinic project. And the concept that I had used for my project was wood carving, and the fact that your body starts out as like a solid piece of wood, and if you have celiac or a digestive issue in general, you like someone that's a wood carver, you're going and over the years you're chipping away at that log, at that piece of wood that you're carving into something. You're chipping away at it, and until you diagnose it and figure out what's wrong, your system doesn't stop being damaged. And once it's damaged forever. You can't put the piece of the log back together. And so then oftentimes with celiac, since your system is damaged, it then causes other issues. And so that's what I think with you getting diagnosed later, because you didn't show any signs that were like typical, obvious and typical for celiac, especially at the time of how much research was in celiac. Like you got diagnosed later, like a lot of people were on our cruise was. And so like other people on our cruise, like everybody had other issues of not just celiac, but being lactose free or different other allergies that were caused because celiac were at their digestive system for a while. But luckily I was caught early on accident. And so that stopped me from having other issues besides the celiac.
And too much damage being done. And I just want to clarify, like, we're not doctors or medical experts by any stretch of the imagination, but what we've been told, or what I've been told by doctors, my tract has repaired itself. My intestines have repaired itself after years of eating gluten-free, and I used to do once a year cheat meals when my symptoms were just having stomach cramps, but now that's why my reactions to having gluten over the years have gotten more severe over time, because my body has repaired itself. But also, to a certain extent, the damage that is done and the other conditions I have is done and will always be that way, and that can't repair itself. We can treat it and manage it, but it kind of is what it is. I lost my train of thought, but your system can never fully go back to the way it was. It can only you can stop it from being damaged and you can heal it, but it's never going to go back to the way it can't be. It's not reverse the damage. It's not reversible. And this is where I was going before, thank you for buying me time to get my thoughts back on track. I'm in a lot of celiac support groups, and you see a lot of people being like, it's been a month and I've been eating gluten-free and I don't feel any better and yada, yada, yada. I think, first of all, it's going to feel worse before it feels better, like with many things. We talk on this podcast with a lot of experts in relationship to people, food, and their bodies and their mental health. And I think that those experts say, and I think this applies, they say it with gaining and losing weight, that it takes a long time to gain the weight. Therefore, it's then going to take a long time to lose the weight, and you need to have patience with that. It's the same thing with gluten-free. If you spent decades where your body's been damaged, it's going to take some time for that to fix itself. But what do you know now that you wish you knew then? What advice do you wish you could go back and give 10-year-old Brittany about living with celiac disease?
I think I would give myself the advice of, you're not the only one. Because at that point, besides me, you, and our brother, we were the only people that I ever knew that had this allergy. I'd heard of like a peanut allergy and a milk allergy and all the rest of it, but a gluten allergy was not something that any of my friends or anyone even in the school was diagnosed with. And I hadn't come to meet anyone with that same allergy until I went to college. And then I met a whole lot of people that had that allergy. And then as getting older and getting out into the real world, and also celiac becoming more diagnosable to people, that now it is a common thing that everybody knows. But back then I thought that I was the only one. And so I think that I would just tell myself that you're not alone in that. A whole lot of other people have this issue too.
Did you feel that it was helpful that at least out of the four of us, 3 out of the 4 of us had it? Was that at least helpful in any way? I know that we didn't have the wherewithal to be able to really support each other properly through the process, but was there comfort in knowing that at least you were going through it with your siblings? And watching Dominic was altogether different, but watching me kind of sort through it, or did watching me have to sort through it become scarier because you were watching me go through 1,000 other health problems at the same time? How did that impact your processing of the diagnosis?
I don't think so. I think in part, like, yes, it did help with having siblings also going through it and learning it at the same time. But I think also it was a little bit difficult because I was the one that had the most severe reaction
in the beginning
to gluten in the beginning, where 2 hours on the dot, I was getting sick, versus you and Dominic just had to go run to the bathroom and we're just on the toilet for hours, versus I was over the toilet for hours with it not as pleasant coming out of me. I guess, with throwing up. Yeah. And so
that's debatable about what's more pleasant than the other. But
well, I mean, I don't know. To the point where nothing's in your stomach anymore and you're still getting sick was not really the most pleasant thing.
Neither one is great.
No. But so I think that was something that it was helpful, but it was also kind of like, why am I the one that's getting this sort of reaction and no one else is? And it's also kind of hard to understand that I was only 10 years old having this sort of reaction and not seeing anybody else have this reaction when we are eating like the same things. So I think it was beneficial, but also like a little bit lonely too at times.
How did having celiac disease, because I also talked about, for me, I didn't really understand the impact of what I thought it would be just as easy to be gluten-free anywhere as it was at home. So I didn't think about it in going into college, and that ended up being why I had to transfer to a different college, was solely because I lost so much weight because I couldn't eat anything in one semester. It was disgusting. I don't know if you would have had the ability to be able to see, because again, our age difference is such that we're in such different parts of life, but did that cause you in the back of your head to think about it more seriously with you going to college, or did you just know for your own well-being that you needed to take it seriously?
No, I think that I just knew, because with going out like to eat to different places with friends and stuff, like they all knew that I was gluten-free and knew that I would only be able to eat at certain places. So I was always the one to research and to choose, or I knew the places that had gluten-free and stuff. So I was always the one that was in charge of kind of picking the place or giving the choices of places to go to. So I was used to that. And with going and picking a college, my process with that was finding the top colleges for my major. And then secondary was, okay, from that list, what ones like do have gluten-free on campus in the food halls and stuff. And I knew that was something that was going to be just as important, just because I already was basically tasked and like learned how to do that and everything with food, and just growing up that way. I knew that was going to be important because I have this allergy. So that was something that was like always, it was a secondary thought with going and picking.
Yeah.
Or my second thought when
I also feel like the internet was more advanced than it was even when I was a senior in high school, because I feel like I grew up with the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So, though the internet's been around like 10 years longer than I've been alive, but still, like, when I was a senior, we were just able to do our applications online. Like, that was a newer thing, I feel like. So forget about that, but just being able to do the research just wasn't as far along in that process. So I'm glad that by the time, even though it was only 4 years later, that it was enough time that you were able to do that research better. Mm-hmm. How do you feel having celiac impacts dating for you? You're in a committed relationship now, but before then, how did it impact your dating?
I always felt like those like first couple dates, like with someone, felt like really awkward and uncomfortable because I never wanted to do a food date ever, because then it brings up having to have that conversation of I have an allergy and it's pretty severe and I can only go certain places and I can only eat like certain things and stuff. So it was always awkward at first with that. But then once you got past that, then it was kind of like I am with my boyfriend right now. We're past that like stage of he knows I'm gluten-free, knows what I can have. He's done like some research on his own of what exactly it is and trying to find recipes that he knows that I like, that he can make and everything. And so now it's just kind of second nature in, okay, we got to research where we're going before we go out to eat or whatever else. So
ask the right questions.
Yeah. And he also is always backing me up, too, with the waiters and waitresses of making sure that it's gluten-free and okay. And he knows my paranoia, and he knows that I get anxiety with going out to eat sometimes. And so he understands that and helps with it.
What's your advice to people that are going into the dating world and having to deal with this as an issue?
I think just being open and, like, not letting it hold you back, because we've always had the worry, or there is always just a worry with travel of, am I going to be able to find something or eat something gluten-free? And you can't let it hold you back. I mean, even if it's just a salad that is all that's there in that town that you can eat, like, then that's like just what you do. Don't let it hold you back. Don't like pack your backpack of snacks and don't let it hold you back, and resort to that if need be. But don't let having celiac hold you back. It's just like any other peanut allergy or anything. All somebody's going to say is okay, and then you pick the place and everything. And if they have a problem with it, then not the person for you anyway. So, toodaloo.
How does having celiac impact things in the workplace?
Well, anytime. I feel like it's not that big of an issue in the workplace, or at least in my workplace. I have like my coworkers, they know that I'm gluten-free, and like for birthdays and stuff, they'll bring me things that like say gluten-free on it and whatever else, like for treats, and make sure that I'm included in that way. But then and it's not just me that's bringing my lunch. There's a lot of people that bring lunch, so it's not like an odd commodity like it is in grade school if you bring lunch. But for large like work lunches, they don't have the gluten-free, because it's just you got to cover the masses, or the larger group of people that don't have an allergy rather than one person.
But people should know their rights of celiac disease is considered a disability. So if at your own workplace, if they are giving food to everybody else, they are required to make sure that they accommodate you as well. So, but I don't always feel the need to do that.
No, because I mean, a lot of times too, like with me being a little bit of a picky eater, like I'd rather just bring my own lunch and stuff and just not like worry about it. Like it's not something that is like a deal breaker or anything
Right.
for me. It's something that I'm already used to, so I don't make like a fuss
Yeah.
over it.
And sometimes my jobs have given me gift cards and been like, okay, here's a voucher, so use that money and get whatever you feel comfortable getting, so that way we're also accommodating you. But I mainly use it of like, if I get glutened, it can't be held against me if I'm sick and have to take off the rest of the day. I there's literally, that's when I call in of it. I'm like, I have a disability, you can't hold this against me. So, but I don't know if have you had that experience yet of getting glutened while at work?
No. But that's just because I typically like
You just don't leave it up to chance.
No, I just bring my own food, and I'm like, this isn't the time to be testing this out. So that's what I also don't mind, because some people can say something's gluten-free and the restaurant will say it's gluten-free or whatever, not fully understanding, and I'm not there to double check that. And so even like if they did get me something gluten-free, I would rather just eat my own food, because I don't want to be playing that risk at work.
Yeah, one time I was at work and I ordered something from a place that claimed that they were 100% gluten-free. And so I got a voucher from my job. They were like, here, because we're giving everybody else lunch, we want to make sure you're taken care of too. So I was like, great. Got it from a place that was supposed to be safe and got pasta, and it was not gluten-free. And I remember my friend had to like carry me out to the Uber and set me up with like a baggie in case I got sick in the car. And I laid down in the back of the Uber and luckily nothing happened in the car. But the guy looked back at me as I was stumbling out of the car, and he's like, oh, it seems like you need to do a better job of sleeping at night. And I was like, thanks, guy. Bye. See you later. But never ordered a lunch ever again. I was like, no, it's okay. I don't want the voucher. I don't want any of it. Just leave me alone. Is there anything else that you feel like would be good for people to know about their celiac disease diagnosis before we move on? Okay, so wrap-up questions. What's your favorite food city that you've been to?
I think New York City.
Do you prefer a vacation that requires you to be active or relax?
Active.
What's the city that you learned the most about yourself?
Florence.
And that is a good cliffhanger for the next part of our 3-part series. So we're almost done. Thank you for joining us on part 2 of the 3-part series with my sister Brittany. Up next, talking about Brittany's studying abroad experience. It got cut off a little short because of COVID, but she has a lot of stories to share nonetheless. And I think people that have celiac disease and figuring out going to college and taking advantage of all the opportunities like studying abroad has to offer, Brittany gives some really good advice. So, as always, till next time. Thank you for joining me this week for all the fun journeys and lessons learned on my big adventure called life. For more information on the different cities discussed, check out the blog posts on hieatexplorelove.com, posted every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you have any questions or fun stories to share, feel free to reach out at hieatexplorelove@gmail.com. Until next week, remember to eat well, explore the world, and love yourself. See you next time. This episode is produced, scripted, and edited by me, Ashley. Special thanks to Sarah Mientka.